Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to look at RAF Hawkinge and some of the warbirds that flew from there during the Second World War. RAF Hawkinge's location as the closest major fighter base to occupied Europe ensured that the airfield played a key role in the Second World War. During the Dunkirk evacuation in May-June 1940, aircraft from Hawkinge provided essential air cover for the Allied forces. While the airfield's location was strategically very useful, it also meant that Hawkinge remained vulnerable to attack. German commanders planning Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of the UK, saw seizing Hawkinge as a priority in order to establish a Luftwaffe-controlled airfield in Britain. On the 19th of July 1940, Messerschmitt 109s shot down at least 6 Bolt and Paul Defiants of No. 141 Squadron in what became known as the Slaughter of the Innocents. A direct result of this and other similar encounters was the conversion of Defiants to night fighters. Following the evacuation from Dunkirk, the first of several major Luftwaffe raids occurred on the 12th of August 1940 and caused a huge amount of damage to the airfield buildings and the grass landing area. Among later attacks, in fairly quick succession, one on the 7th of September directly hit the base headquarters, as well as killing 6 people in the nearby village. This did not deter the use of the airfield, and aircraft from Hawkinge continued to make significant contributions to the war. Many fighter squadrons provided aerial support in the run-up to D-Day and afterwards. The main runway was also extended so that Hawkinge could act as an emergency landing ground for returning damaged RAF and USAF bombers. Another prominent wartime duty was air-sea rescue, with various types, such as Western Lysanders, Supermarine Walruses, and Sea Otters, using the airfield for a considerable period. Hawkinge was the nearest RAF station to enemy-occupied France, with the Luftwaffe fighters based in the Pas de Calais being a mere 6 minutes flying time away. Naturally, it and the surrounding district was also the target of the Luftwaffe's bombers, and in addition was subjected to long-range cross-channel shelling from the German shore batteries stationed along the French coast. Not for nothing was the Dover and Folkestone area known as Hellfire Corner. Despite the passing years, today's visitor can still savour the atmosphere of the airfield's past, with the landmarks and the buildings that remain acting as a reminder of those perilous days. Indeed, prior to the housing development on the airfield in 1993, one could still see the English Channel and the French coast from this historic spot. Flying with the RAF had been a great adventure for young men seeking excitement. Now there was to be a change as Hitler's armies drew closer to the French coast. Quite suddenly, aerodrome defence became all important. Thousands of sandbags were required and filled. Machine gun posts, dugouts and shelters suddenly sprang up around the airfield perimeter. Every building was camouflaged with drab green and brown paint. It was in complete contrast to the whitewash which had been the prevalent feature during the 30s. The flowering rose gardens and shrubs looked very much out of place. Machine guns and mobile 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns soon arrived to take up their positions. Windows and doors were protected by piles of sandbags. By June 1940, the aerodrome was more or less ready for Hitler's war. It was fully operational when the Dunkirk evacuations were taking place. The few Army cooperation squadrons still remaining in the country were soon organised to fly from Hawkinge to drop supplies of ammunition, food and water to beleaguered troops at Calais and Boulogne on the French coast. The first Hurricane and Spitfire squadrons to arrive at Hawkinge during the summer of 1940 usually touched down at about 5 a.m. when the ground crews were just crawling out of their beds. The pilots ate their breakfasts beside their aeroplanes, where parachutes rested on their tailplanes, ready for any emergency. They waited for the tannoy to give the scramble. At least 26 fighter squadrons used Hawkinge during the summer of 1940. Under the control of Fighter Command, Hawkinge had become a satellite airfield of RAF Biggin Hill. It was already in the front line when Luftwaffe activity increased in the skies over Kent. The fighter squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires flew down to Hawkinge at first light every day to operate their sorties from dawn till dusk, when they would then fall back inland to relative safety. Soon, aerial battles were being fought at anything from 2,000 to 20,000 feet. There were many exploits of individual gallantry. Some of them have never been documented.